I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Economics Report. Big stock exchanges in the United States are linked in what is known as the National Market System Plan. The idea is to process deals and report the best available prices to the public as quickly as possible. But there are other ways of investing that operate outside the national market system. In the late 1990s, the Securities and Exchange Commission wanted to make room for new ideas in financial trading. The Commission developed new rules for exchanges and for what are known as alternative trading systems. Alternative trading systems are operated by brokers or dealers. They mainly serve big investors like retirement funds, universities, and financial companies. These systems trade the same public stocks as other market players do, but they do not publicly report their trades. This secrecy explains why they also have another name, dark pools. As of October, there were 86 alternative trading systems registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. A buy or sell order for a large amount of stock can move markets. It can influence other investors to try to buy or sell shares of that same stock. Supporters of alternative trading systems say the secrecy reduces the risk of a disorderly market. But the International Monetary Fund has concerns about alternative trading systems. It says they limit the ability of the investing public to price a security effectively. Also, the IMF says the activity of these trading systems is largely outside the reach of market regulators. Another alternative to the investing methods that most people know is the work of so-called angel investors. These are individuals who invest in new projects, and not just internet startups that hope to become the next Google or Facebook. They could also be small local businesses. Steve Moore made a lot of money in the software business. After he retired, he made an interest-free loan to Christy and Keith Kissler. The couple operate a small organic farm in Washington State. They could not get a bank loan to build their business. In return, Mr. Moore received a minority share of their business. The Center for Venture Research at the University of New Hampshire says angel investing fell more than 6% nationwide in the first half of last year. Still, angel investments during that period totaled $8.5 billion. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
On VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report in Special English. On January 1st, both houses of the United States Congress approved a plan to increase taxes for most Americans. This agreement avoided much larger tax increases that were going to take effect this year. After signing the bill, President Obama said it was important to have a balanced approach to the country's fiscal problems. In the final months of 2012, the country faced a combination of higher taxes and automatic budget cuts that were being called the fiscal cliff. The fiscal cliff was avoided, but more remains to be done. Congress has given itself more time to decide how to cut the federal budget. Increased tax revenue and budget restrictions are needed to reduce the federal deficit, which was over $1 trillion last year. The new law increases the tax rate on individuals with earnings of over $400,000 and on couples with earnings of over $450,000. All working Americans will have some kind of tax increase. This is because the share of Social Security taxes paid by employees will return to 2010 levels, an increase from last year of 2%. But the largest part of the tax increase will affect those with a lot of investment income and those with very high wages. Taxes on investment gains and dividends and payments from some kinds of securities will increase as well. Also, the top income tax rate will go to 39.5% from 35%. Overall, the effect of the law is simple. It will be the first major tax increase in 20 years. In addition, lawmakers are facing difficult budget decisions. On March 1st, big automatic budget cuts, or sequestration, is set to take place across the federal government. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prisuti.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. American children and teenagers have increased their use of entertainment media by more than 1 hour a day in the last 5 years. On an average day, they now spend 7.5 hours using media. These are the findings of a new survey. It included devices like TVs, computers, mobile phones, and MP3 players, but also media like books and magazines. It did not count media use for school. Vicki Rideout at the Kaiser Family Foundation, a health research group, wrote the report. She was surprised that kids could fit even more media time into their day. She found that they spent 10 hours and 45 minutes if you counted each device individually. But children multitask a lot. And Vicki Rideout says this is not necessarily a good thing. She says, people who study the brain will tell you that you can't actually multitask in that way. You're really switching back and forth sequentially from different tasks, just doing it rapidly. And you don't really do either task as well as you would do them if you did them one at a time. The study suggests a link between heavy media use and lower performance in school. About 1/4 of those who used media the least reported that their grades were mostly average or below. But that was true of half the heavy media users. So where are the parents? Children who had any rule limiting the use of any kind of media were exposed to an average of about 3 hours less media a day. But only 1/3 of children had to follow any rules. Girls spent more time than boys on social networking sites, listening to music and reading. Boys spent more time on video games, an average of 48 minutes more a day than girls. Some other findings. Time spent reading books has not dropped in the last 5 years, but Time with newspapers and magazines has, though some reading now takes place online. Blacks and Hispanics use media over 4 hours more a day than other groups. And for all children, media use appears to reach its highest point between the ages of 11 and 14. Vicki Rideout will try to explain these findings in future research. The report is based on more than 2,000 students ages 8 to 18. They took a written survey in class through May of last year. And that's the VOA Special English Economics Report.
I'm Carolyn Persutti with the VOA Special English Economics Report. State and local governments across the United States are facing big budget deficits. Many of these shortfalls include promises of future retirement payments for public employees. Several states have had to borrow money for pension plans that have fallen below required funding levels. Pay and benefits for public workers have been a target as state and local governments try to cut spending. At the same time, there are efforts in several states to reduce the negotiating rights of public employees. In many cases, public employee unions have agreed to accept lower pay, but they oppose efforts to limit collective bargaining. An effort by Republicans to do that in Wisconsin led protesters to occupy the state capitol building. Almost every state requires a balanced budget, yet worries that state and local governments might not be able to repay their debts are now adding to the costs of borrowing. Illinois had to offer a high return of nearly 6% on bonds to be repaid by 2019. Experts say on average, public employees are paid less but have better benefits than workers with similar skills in private jobs. However, they say these differences in labor costs are a lot less than some people think. Still, traditional pension plans pay a set amount for as long as a retiree lives. States like Georgia, Michigan, Colorado, and Ohio are considering a change for future employees. They might offer retirement plans similar to what are called 401k plans. These are a common form of plan offered by private employers. Employers and workers both put money into the plan. Workers can invest the money in stocks or bonds. Their retirement savings are defined by the return on their investments in the plan. Federal workers already have a savings plan similar to a 401k. John McGlennon heads the government department at the College of William and Mary in Virginia. He says the economic crisis of 2008 continues to affect state and local tax collections. Also, many pension funds have less money because their investments have yet to fully recover from the recession. But Professor McGlennon says things could change. He says states might not be in good financial condition in the next few years, but they usually recover more quickly than we think they will. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Persutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. The United States is considering the future of an American law called the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA. This law allows countries in sub-Saharan Africa to export some goods and natural resources to the United States without duties. AGOA is set to end in 2015. It was signed into law in 2000 and has been extended once already. Earlier this month, American Trade Representative Michael Froman met with African ministers in Ethiopia for talks on the possible renewal of AGOA. He said the United States is interested in African trade talks with the European Union. He said American officials want to know about the results of those talks before they decide what to do about extending the law. Mr. Froman said African partner countries need to think about how they want to work with the United States on renewing it. He said the countries need to understand how the issue relates to their negotiations with the European Union. EU economic partnership agreements with African countries would be different from AGOA. Not only would African products be duty-free in Europe, European goods sent to African markets would not be subject to import taxes either. Mr. Froman said the wording of AGOA might need to be changed so the law is more like the EU partnership agreements. He said the United States is unlikely to support calls for giving African partners one-way access to the American market while limiting trade for American companies. In the end, the United States Congress will decide whether or not to approve an extension of the law and for how long. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Economics Report. Big stock exchanges in the United States are linked in what is known as the National Market System Plan. The idea is to have another name, dark pools. As of October, there were 86 alternative trading systems registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. A buy or sell order for a large amount of stock make room for new ideas in financial trading. The Commission developed new rules for exchanges and for what are known as alternative trading systems. Alternative trading systems are operated by brokers or dealers. They mainly serve process deals and report the best available prices to the public as quickly as possible. But there are other ways of investing that operate outside the national market system. In the late 1990s, the Securities and Exchange Commission wanted to big investors like retirement funds, universities, and financial companies. These systems trade the same public stocks as other market players do, but they do not publicly report their trades. This secrecy explains why they also